Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another hosting.com agency success live stream. I've got Daphne Monroe, our head of website and content, here today. This actually was the reason why we started doing live streams, asking you to come on to do live streams, definitely. And we're finally getting to this big case study, which is back in January 2025. Hosting.com acquired A2 Hosting, and A2 24, I think, years. That website, if you can imagine, multi-million-dollar business sitting there. SEO, as you all well know, is key to the hosting industry. And so the question is, how did Daphne and team take a awesome, well-ranked, rich, with a lot of traffic domain name and roll out hosting.com, which we're super, super proud of. And so today she's going to be sharing that case study. But Daphne, thanks so much for being here. You've ran your own agency, worked in multiple agencies, and anybody that knows you knows SEO is your jam. You love this and are passionate about it. So really pumped for you to share today. And thank you for being on again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. SEO is my jam, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of lots of different migrations. All of the learnings in this webinar today, you can apply to any kind of, it doesn't have to be a domain migration. Maybe you just want to do content consolidation, or maybe you do want to change your brand name. There will be sections of each of this that you can take away and implement into your own strategy, whatever that looks like, because there are millions of different ways that we migrate. You might be migrating CMSs, you might be migrating, I don't know, hosting providers. But today we're specifically going to be talking about changing our domain name from A2 Hosting to hosting.com, which in the SEO world is a bit of a no-no. We always attribute authority to the domain or the existing URL. So when we change that, let alone change every single one of them, it's a big risk. And there's a lot of things that you need to consider. And we're going to just break it all down and show you actual data from our websites to prove the success of this strategy and hopefully help you either help your clients in the future or take these learnings and apply them to your own work. So as Corey just said, we started off in January with acquiring A2 Hosting. And one of the biggest things that they said to us right away was, we're going to change it to hosting.com. I don't think there was anybody who wasn't excited about this news. Just the potential of a domain name like that, you can feel it in your bones. But hosting.com at that point in time had no website. So normally when you acquire a business and say we're migrating it into an existing site, we take all that yummy authority that it's built up over time. And with our redirect mapping, we can transfer that into our URL. But we were taking something that had a lot of goodness and moving it into nothing. So where do we even start? What are the risks? And how do we make sure that our action plan is foolproof? We need to first start by setting our project goals. I think it's easy enough to bundle it up in one phrase, which is preserve our SEO authority. SEO authority can kind of be a blanket statement for a lot of different things, such as our keyword portfolio, our organic traffic, our current rankings. But overall, we just called it authority because we knew we wanted to hit all of those metrics. So our core KPIs look like traffic retention, ranking recovery, and conversion uplift. Conversion uplift is a specific one that I want to highlight in this journey. Because A2 had been around for a very long time, there were a lot of pages and a lot of keywords that come with that. And when you look at keyword portfolios as a standalone metric, they can be very bloated or maybe more of a vanity metric at times, because you can be ranking for a lot of keywords, but not necessarily ranking well or driving in the right traffic with that content. So what we did as part of this strategy was really honed in on those high converting keywords and made sure that the traffic that was coming to our site got to be met with the intent of their keyword. So driving the right people to informational pages and driving the right people to transactional pages, and so on and so forth. I put numbers on this slide, but there really is no specific order to it. All of these considerations are equally as important as each other. So for us, the considerations were the current keyword portfolio and the performance of those keywords, the positions, clicks, and impressions of all ranking keywords, the site architecture, not necessarily the existing site architecture, but what we wanted that site architecture to look like, and the navigation, so how users actually got to travel through the site. This one's very specific to A2, and this would be specific to any rebrand that you or a client were doing. It's A2 branded keywords. We're changing the name. A2 is known around the globe, so making sure that we didn't lose that authority was extremely important. Then, of course, we needed to make sure that the technical health on the site either stayed the same or was improved to help with SEO, and always keeping our eyes on growth and the future opportunities of the website. So this is a quick look at the keyword performance of A2 pre-migration. So if you look on the right-hand side, I put these A2 keywords because this is so important to this site. You can see that the volume for these keywords, not just in the US, but and in this example, which is just taken from the top ranking keywords, this has US and India, but it is a global reach. And we are still having many, many users today finding our website with A2 driven keywords. If you take a look in these columns, you can see the volume. So this would be monthly estimated volume of people typing in these keywords. When they're typing in your brand name, you know they're looking for you. So it's really important that we're showing up. And you can see that reflected in our positions. So we were typically ranking in position number 1. And then, of course, that gets shown in the traffic metrics. So what that estimated traffic would be from these different locations and different keywords. And again, this is just a quick snapshot. If you look up here in the top left-hand corner, you can see that there were 349 A2 keywords ranking on the 2nd of March, 2025, which is about a month and 3/4 of a month before we migrated. So when we took the A2 out of the picture and looked at just what was ranking very well at that time, you can see that we were ranking really well for hosting keywords, reseller, best web hosting, VPS, and so on and so forth. So the type of keywords that you were expecting to rank with this type of website, but with significant search volume and in many, many locations. So these keywords became a core part of our strategy. But this is just the analysis phase. I will show you at the end of all of these findings how we can take them and actually make an action plan that you can walk away with today. And I apologize, I also did want to say that this is from Ahrefs. So this is a report that anyone on the web can get. It is estimated metrics, but from very regular crawls of the web. So it's also a very good tool to see what your competitors are doing and yourself and your clients if you don't have access to their Google Search Console and Google Analytics data. In this slide, we are taking a look at the crawlability of the website. So the performance metrics could be looked at as speed, but this specifically would be errors and warnings and notices that fall into on-page activity. So this could be content or 404 pages, unlinked pages, broken links. On the right-hand side, I've included some of those errors that were our top priority. So what got us from that 83 to 100, and that included things like 404 pages, canonicals that were pointing to redirects that obviously could point to just where those redirects went, orphan pages that were just floating around, either needed to be consolidated or needed to be linked to in an appropriate manner. We had HTTPS pages. This is something more importantly, like when the SSL certificate didn't get you that big red "don't enter this site" warning. So when it was less important. Then, of course, just things like title tags being missing or multiple title tags and so on and so forth. Then we have the performance of the speed of the site. So Google Core Web Vitals. Here is a snapshot, and I do want to caveat that this was taken on May 8th. So this was directly after the migration. We have since then rebranded the website because we are always moving fast. We're always taking data from VWO, different A/B tests, different surveys to see how users are engaging with our website and what works best. So our score is not this high right now, but it's because we've been implementing a lot of changes very quickly. However, when we did immediately finish the migration, we were in an extremely, extremely healthy space, which probably went to help us reclaim a lot of that authority. But that was back in May, and whole quarter's gone by then. So, but comparing it with what maybe competitors were doing at this time, or what the A2 website was doing at this time, this is an exceptional space to be. And we worked very, very hard as part of this migration project to make sure that we were beating all the competition to ensure that we could get those extremely competitive keywords under our belt. Here's a look at the clicks, impressions, and positions that were visible on the A2 account. I was a little bit cheeky and took out the actual numbers throughout this, but I did keep in the graphs so that you can still have visual representation, but we always got to keep a close eye on our competitors and what we're sharing. But hopefully this gives you a good idea. If you go into Google Search Console, I'm sure you know this blue line is clicks. This purple one is impressions. You can see the drop in clicks happening right after we launched, which was April 28th, and we see that sharp drop. But we can take a look at this chart beforehand and compare it to the data as we kept on going. The reason this data is so important is because we can take these clicks and impressions and map them with our URLs to help us identify which pages have the most risk and allow us to understand how we're going to target them and how we're going to build up that strategy to keep all of the authority on those pages. This is a look at the hosting.com Google Search Console versus the A2 Google Search Console. And I wanted to share this with you today because it shows you, even though we migrated on the 28th of April, especially because of the history of A2, we are still receiving many, many clicks today that come in through A2. That's not because we're doing anything wrong. We put in all the correct redirects. We notified Google Search Console. We've submitted our correct sitemaps. But Google is always going to use the SERP to serve up users with the best experience for their query. So I can't tell you exactly how it works because I don't know. But through trial and error and a lot of years being hands-on in the work, this is just something that I've seen. So we've kept this account on our radar, and it's something that we look at regularly. And when we're combining the results from this migration, we make sure to add these clicks into our data to show that people are still being sent to our site, but also to understand the importance of the A2 keywords in this migration. I am very proud to say that you can see the spike happen when the migration happened. This is probably because we did a lot of PR activity. We were very heavy on the social media front, but then you can see that decline, and this is exactly what we would expect to happen. And then alternatively to that, we can see the growth happening on the hosting.com side, and we can see that continuous growth. So we just keep building and building in this space and driving traffic to our site. When we look at our Google Search Console accounts, and I'm going to go back to this graph just to show you that this is where all of this data is coming from, and we're doing a migration, the first place I start is a spreadsheet. I know that sounds super, super boring, but it's where we need to be. This is example data. This isn't our real data, but it gives you a good idea of how we can use all of these different pieces, all of these different metrics to create our prioritization, our consolidation plan, and really map out what that future looks like. So when it comes to site architecture, I always start with a site crawl. So I make sure that I can find all of the URLs on our website. I also take in our orphan URLs, any URL, not social media ones, that's not true. Nothing that's going to take you off of the domain, but the blog, knowledge base, any subdomains, all of those things we want to include. And then we want to compare them with the data that we have in Google Search Console, Google Analytics, or if you don't have access to either of those, you can just use a SEO tool like Ahrefs, SEMrush, or another one of that sort. If you've never used a VLOOKUP query in Excel, this is a good day to start learning, because when you have all of this data and you have all of your URLs, it's really nice and easy to put everything in a single sheet and use that VLOOKUP so that we can compare them. As you can see, I typically pull everything in, line up side by side, and then I like to use a color grading to help me really visually see where I need to be putting my effort. So it's pretty safe to assume that something that's getting this type of clicks, impressions, and sessions is going to be our homepage, or something with like the utmost importance. So that's a good sign of where to start. Whereas this page, which let's just say, for example, it's a product page, it doesn't have very many clicks. Well, it has 0 clicks, impressions, and positions. So we probably don't need to prioritize it. Maybe there's even a case for consolidation, depending on if it has a similar primary keyword to another page. But that's all stuff that we can dive in the next slide, which is all about keyword mapping. So as part of this spreadsheet that I'm building, I've got my sessions, clicks, impressions, and position. I'm also going to have my URL. And then I need to go through in a completely different sweep and find primary keywords for every existing URL on my site. So I put in a few examples here where you can see web hosting /shared is going to map quite nicely with the shared web hosting keywords. Web hosting /cheap, we don't want it to also be targeting shared web hosting keywords, because that would create internal competition and it would hurt your likelihood of ranking. So instead, we need to find an applicable keyword with decent search volume and map that keyword to that page. If you cannot find an applicable keyword that doesn't already exist, that's when you need to do content consolidation. And that's when we just take the things that we have, the informations that we have on our different pages, and we put them together on a single URL, whatever URL is receiving the most traffic or which has the highest position. And then we continue with that in 301 redirect the other URL to that page. This way, we're showing crawlers and users that this is the place to go. We don't have a different place to go. We're not going to confuse you. We're going to send you to the exact right space for you to do what you need to do. When you're looking at what type of difficulty and volume is good enough to be a keyword, it's going to be very different in every use case. So a local hairdresser is going to have very different requirements as opposed to a global hosting company. What I would say is a great starting point, if you're not sure what good looks like, take your want to be competitors and then take your where you're at competitors. So see what, for example, let me think. If I'm a brand new toy company, I maybe want to look at what Toys R Us is doing. I'm just little and local, and I mostly sell at my stall on the weekends, but it's still good to see what the competition out there looks like. But I know that there's another stall next to me that has a website, so that's a more realistic and achievable foundational place to go as I can, reach for the stars with my strategy and feature planning. So the easiest way to find a primary keyword on an existing site, so a site like A2 Hosting, which I'm mapping out to go to hosting.com, is just to take the URLs and pop that into Google Search Console or pop that into an SEO tool like Ahrefs. The easiest way to find a primary keyword on an existing site, so in this example, we're obviously migrating A2 Hosting to hosting.com, and A2 Hosting has a plethora of keywords to select from. So I start by going into Google Search Console or into an SEO tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush, where I can take the existing slug or URL and paste it into the database and find out which keywords are performing the best in this space. So my screenshot on the left-hand side, I apologize, is incorrect. It's actually not the query we're going to head to, it's the page. And in the page selection, we're going to post the slug, so the end of that URL, and Google Search Console will serve up any of the existing ranking keywords for that URL. On a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs, we're going to paste the whole thing in, and then we're going to head into the keyword portfolio section. One of the reasons that I really like to do existing keywords this way is because of the way that these tools will rank them and the way that they display them to the user. So out the box, it won't typically be organized in a sense of, these are all position 1, but instead it'll take all of the metrics of position, traffic, difficulty, and serve it up to you in that order. So it's really nice to see in the visual sense what is doing the best in a weighted formula. Whereas if you're starting your research from the ground up or from zero, you kind of have to do that guessing. And there's definitely ways you can with formulas and pulling out your own understanding of your right to rank with the difficulty of different keywords. But this is a really nice and easy way to see it. If you were an A2 hosting lover, which many of us are, you may have noticed that A2 was on a flat structure. So everything was right off that domain name. I put an example here of turbo hosting. So just went A2 hosting / turbo hosting. Whereas today we'll be hosting.com/hosting / turbo hosting or turbo or some iteration of that. The reason we made this change was, for several reasons. There's actually a whole list over there. But having a hierarchy helps improve user understanding. It helps crawlers understand your content better because they can see what the parent relationship is to these children pages. It's kind of the same way that we use different heading structures on a page. You only want to have one H1, and then H2s below, and then H3s where applicable. It's the same philosophy. You also can enable breadcrumb logic as this. So this will show up in SERPs, and people can see how your page corresponds to the different pages on your site. Or if you are an e-commerce site and you allow people to drill down in different colors or different graphics that they can have on their t-shirts, you may want them to easily be able to click back and forth. It helps with internal linking, crawl efficiency, analytic segmentation. So if you're doing crawls via Screaming Frog, having folders makes a world of a difference because you can easily structure what you want to crawl. And overall, it's just better for site management. In this case of going from A2 hosting to hosting.com, we really didn't have a risk of doing this because we were already changing the domain name. So it was already changing. Leaving those folders as they were wasn't going to add anything. So we took advantage of that opportunity and added a lot of folders. If you are not changing your domain name and you want to add folders, there is a risk to that. And you need to make sure, first of all, you have enough of keyword intent and volume to have those children pages, because you may be better off just having a single page, or that your rankings aren't just already performing at the top of their class in the space that there are, so you don't really need to put that risk out. Each case is different, and if you have a specific case that you want to share with me, I'd be happy to take a look and let you know my thoughts. Another big step for us was reclaiming the backlinks. A2 Hosting had a lot of backlinks, not just from publications or from the great PR that they've been doing, but also from events and affiliate relationships and so much, so much. We actually worked with a third-party agency to help us handle this because there were so many beautiful backlinks, and backlinks really are the foundation of authority, because how other people are talking about you means a lot more than how you speak about yourself. And Google has known that to be true almost since the inception of the SERP. So this is just an example of how we leveraged like our meetup links and how we just went in and changed old posts to link to hosting.com. But there are many, many other examples. We really did have to go the old-fashioned route and write personalized emails to a lot of our higher domain ranking backlinks that were floating around across the internet. and just say, hey, we're now hosting.com. We're the same people love, and trust. Would you mind please updating the link for us so that we can have that direct pass of authority to our website? If you don't have the time to do backlink reclamation for yourself, that is okay. Implementing your 301 redirects does pass that authority to your new URLs, but you will lose some authority. With each redirect you put into place, you will lose a little bit and a little bit more. That's why we always make sure that we are not ending up in redirect chains, and that we're cutting that down on our internal side of the site as much as possible, like for like, so that we're not well, first of all, you can get stuck in the chains and the user experience could be extremely slow, but also, of course, that authority passing that we want to make sure we keep as much as possible. This is a quick look at one of our KPIs, which was keyword retention, before migrating and after migrating. And this is an example of what I was saying earlier about how when we put in these URLs on these different tools, they show us a result that is formulaic using search volume, keyword difficulty, estimated traffic, and position. Sorry, my mouth is very dry today. In the top right-hand corner, I also shared what filters I put into place just to be extremely transparent with you all. I didn't want to include the A2 keywords because obviously the A2 website was going to rank best for A2 keywords, and it's something that we shared with you early that we still have traffic coming in there. But instead, I wanted to focus on those like pillar keywords that we knew were transactional, that were driving people to purchase with us, that were influencing our conversion rate. So I put anything that phrase matched hosting, domain, cPanel, and VPS as this case study. On the left-hand side, you can see examples like hosting on A2 in March was ranking in position number 2 with an estimated traffic of about 1,500 users per month. We also had Java web hosting, managed VPS hosting, cheap reseller hosting, so on and so forth. You can see the traffic here. So we go 1,500, 400, 250, and then we drop down to about 124. On this side, and this is 10, I believe this is 12, so we'll ignore these bottom two. But we can see here the hosting keyword, our traffic is estimated to be slightly higher, but we kept that second position, which was one of the biggest ones for me specifically. It does help that our name is hosting.com. Google will say that having keywords in your domain doesn't help, but throughout my years of experience, you can't deny it because we're using keywords for our linking, and it definitely does have an impact. So you can see, even though that our position hadn't changed, we did see a significant increase in traffic, about 500 more monthly visitors coming in, and I will comfortably assume that that is because of our name. We also started ranking for higher difficulty keywords like the 94 space here, 77, 80, 95, sorry, for things like best web hosting, business hosting, and internet hosting, which all carry significant search volume and traffic and kept very healthy positions. So we can see here, everything here is top 5 and above. So that's our top ranking stuff in October. So this isn't immediately after migration. This took some time to reclaim, but we're showing up in an extremely healthy space. I put some more information here so we can break it down into this migration resulted with strong performance despite higher keyword difficulty, traffic retention across comparable or tougher SERPs, a shift in higher value traffic, and authority consistency across segments. Looking at all the data that I shared with you today, which was really about just content consolidation, performance crawlability, the page speed performance. One thing that I didn't share with you is that we made the conscious decision to not change any of the existing A2 content from what was on all of the pages that we decided to keep from our new URLs. So hosting.com/hosting, when we launched in April, had the exact same content that A2 hosting/hosting had at pre-launch. The reason we did that is we knew A2 was ranking there for a reason. They put a lot of work into their strategy, into their authority, and all of those years of love and nurturing. We didn't want to go and shake the scene. We wanted this migration to be smooth and natural, even though the visuals and the experience was significantly different. We wanted to make it from a crawler's perspective, who's less concerned with the way things look and feel, very, very similar. So having the right words and linking and heading exactly the same, I do feel had a major influence on us being able to retain our keywords in this space. So this is our traffic retention. This spike that I've highlighted here was launch date. So as I explained earlier, we did do PR. We were shouting about it. So of course we did expect to see traffic spikes. And this, it's both A2 hosting and to hosting.com all in one account. I don't know what this anomaly is here, why we had a big drop there, but you can see pretty much over time, we've seen pretty steady, healthy traffic coming in through our site. And that is just a testament to this migration strategy and to all of the great work that all of the people at hosting.com are doing. I can't take all of the praise for this strategy, because at the end of the day, it really is the support. It is the products. It is the amazing, incredible, talented team that we have. Our CEO, our CTO, our CPO, they all play the role in making this happen. But most migrations from an SEO perspective, after you do a domain name change, you will see a major drop, kind of like that drop, but that lasts longer. That if you've done SEO for clients, or you've worked with agencies, or it's happened to your own website, they say, oh, well, you got to give it about 3 months. This is this is April to today, so I'll let you use your brains to work out that time frame, but it's pretty significant. It's stayed steady, it's healthy, and it seems to be growing in a really nice, exciting way. So that's how I did it. But how are you going to do it? And what can you take away and implement into your own strategies? We are going to break it down for you in the next few slides. Pre-migration planning. So this is probably the most important part. You need your pre-flight checklist. You need to start somewhere. So you start with a crawl. You can crawl using Screaming Frog for free. You can use Google Search Console and see which URLs are ranking. I wouldn't recommend that, because you won't get a full picture of all of your existing sites, all of your existing URLs. You can use tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush, and there's a world of different ones. One of the free tools that I also like is called XML Sitemap Creator, which is in order to create XML sitemaps, but it's free and it will tell you all of the different URLs of your page. Once you've got all of your URLs in a spreadsheet, we're going to then export the GA4 and Google Search Console data, traffic impressions, clicks, and position. Then we're going to identify our top performing pages using a method like I shared earlier. So you can color code it if that works for you, or you can just filter it. And then you can see where we need to put our energy. I then would recommend doing a baseline recording of your core web vitals using a Google Lighthouse report, or a GTmetrix report, or something of a similar measurement, and then writing down your conversion rates. These, for me, are extremely important if you're going to do a migration for a client, because a lot of times if you forget this step and you've done your migration and you're like, oh, the website's performing so well, and they say, well, what was it performing like before? And you don't have those numbers to hand, you can't go back and get them because you've already done the migration. So make sure to do your due diligence, put a folder together, and write all of this down. Also recommend benchmarking against competitors. So before you begin, what does good look like? And then what does great look like? How are we going to get there? What does that plan look like? And then if you are changing your brand name, create a list of branded keywords and monitor that heavily and see what you can do to recover that. And as I mentioned previously, spreadsheets, they're not that sexy, but they are very important. And VLOOKUP is going to become your best friend, so you can consolidate all of your information into one space. It's easy to digest. Once you've got that spreadsheet placed together, we'll do a technical audit. I'll keep beating that drum. Ahrefs is my bread and butter. Highly recommend it. They have a great site audit tool, which I shared the screenshots with you earlier, that flags those errors, warnings, and notices. Put that down so then you can correct all of that with part of your migration plan and share that data, share that improvement as part of what you achieved with your migration. Validate your current sitemap in robots.txt. So what sitemap is on your Google Search Console account at the moment? Are your robots.txt rules blocking crawlers from certain sections of your site? Perhaps you're a membership website. You need to make sure that your new website is also blocking those sections. You don't want to mess that up. And also, if you're doing a staging environment and you put robots to block everything, make sure when it's launch day, you remember to allow robots to crawl. I am speaking from experience of that one. It was many, many moons ago, but it was a faux pas, and I will never make that mistake again. You also need to use this time to identify which pages have duplicate or thin content. That's going to be part of your content consolidation plan. So anything that doesn't have enough content to have a primary keyword or already exists in another page, we're going to merge those together and put our 301 redirects in place. Make sure you know what your backlink portfolio looks like. Again, Ahrefs or Google Search Console is a great place to do this. Document your canonical tags. And this canonical tags may become less relevant after you do your content consolidation plan, but they're still good to have to reference in the future. Also noticing what kind of structured data exists on your current website. For example, like brand names, or do you have aggregated ratings, or anything else that's helping you rank in the SERP? You want to make sure that you're bringing that over with you. So keep everything into one folder you could revisit on any time. All the screenshots, all the data, Google Drive, pop it in there, and you can come back anytime. And it's just important to have the site architecture. Arguably, the most important thing that I feel we did as part of this A2 migration, but a caveat to that is it's not important for every migration and not necessarily applicable in every case. So as part of our site architecture is important and needs to be involved, but changing the site architecture may not need to happen. So mapping all of our existing URLs to new URLs. So of course, we're changing the domain name here. We need to make sure that all the A2 hosting domain names had a place to go and were mapped out. Consolidate, flag them for content updates. So even if you're not planning on changing your content, make sure that the pieces that are being consolidated, you're not leaving any of that goodness behind, and you're bringing any, like maybe there's a unique paragraph or a different perspective on this page that you're like, oh, it's not doing good enough to keep. We're going to bring that over, and then we're going to migrate over. Update breadcrumbs, ensure the new URL structure clarifies hierarchy and improves crawl efficiency. So if you are going to add folders, make sure that it makes sense. The different hosting options are under hosting. Maybe the different t-shirt colors are under t-shirt. There's a lot of different ways that we can structure it, but make sure that it's actually helpful to users first and foremost, and then to your crawlers. The execution of a migration can look different for every person. So part of A2 migration for us was not just an uplift from a design perspective, but it was also a migration to a new CMS. So we didn't just create all of this in WordPress, for example. So say your site exists on WordPress and you want to move to Joomla, or Joomla to WordPress, or the hundreds of different CMSs we could be using. So you need to do whatever you need to do there first, and then implement your 301 redirects. Maybe you're doing that in WordPress via a plugin. Maybe you're doing that in an htaccess file. It depends what your current setup looks like. We also need to make sure that we're not forgetting about our meta titles and descriptions during this time, and that we're migrating them over. Sometimes that has to be manual. Sometimes it's very, very tedious. For our migration, all of the content was manual, and it took a very, very long time, but it was so worth it, and I would do it 100 times over. Making sure that your analytics tracking and any other tags that you have on site is set up correctly on your other site is something that just cannot be overlooked, because we need to prove the value of this migration, either to yourself, because then you know how great you are, or to your clients. So make sure that you've done all the appropriate tasks to, when you go to launch date, you can collect all of that traffic data right away. verify your canonical tags, structured data, and then check for your core web vitals and check across devices and check across browsers. You should be doing this before you implement any redirects. Please, please, please check your core web vitals before you hit go. And then when it comes to launch day, we need to do some monitoring. So verify this on Google Search Console. So in Google Search Console, when you're changing your domain name, you need to create another container and you need to tell Google Search Console that you are moving that old container to that new container. And then you need to submit your sitemap to Google Search Console as well. You want to be monitoring this daily. If not, if you're me, it was more like hourly. That's not healthy and I don't recommend that. But at least daily, just to make sure things are looking right. And Google Search Console will flag errors and let you know if there are any issues. Also, tracking the ranking changes during this time is exciting and fun, and you can see the growth that you get. It can be frustrating because it is important to know these things take time. The internet is vast, and crawlers are crawling everything all the time, and you just might not be top of the list. But if you're patient, you will see the changes come in, and it will all be worth it. Finally, I do recommend doing backlink reclamation if your site that you were moving from, if you were changing domain names. Backlinks just hold a wealth of authority, and they really matter more now today. Well, they matter a lot, and they matter a lot in the world of LLMs. I won't say that that's more important because search and user experience is always important, but go through and see where you were spoken about, how you were spoken about, and then go and get that back when it's good and when the domain rankings are very good. Update anything that's owned. So by looking at your backlink portfolio, you may notice that you own some odd ones out there that are driving authority from high domain ranking sites, so that you can just log into an account and update that. So highly recommend doing that. Share press releases. Get out in your local Facebook groups, local news. Go and shout it to the world. Tell the BBC, tell the NBC, everybody you want, and try to get as many new backlinks to you as well. And connect. That is everything that I have for you guys today. Hopefully that was as exciting for you as it was for me. And now, if anybody has any questions.
That was fantastic. Thank you. It's incredible that in like 45 minutes you summed up months and months of work. So one of the first questions David asked about the timetable. Could you take us, okay, so probably around or before acquisition back in January, but could you just kind of walk us through, we did this time, that time, and that leading up to launch?
Yeah. So the day I found out about A2 hosting, the first thing I did was I went and ran a crawl. And I just wanted to see what was the size of the site. Like, what are we working with? We had whispers about hosting.com previously. So I kind of knew in the back of my head something big might be boiling there. So I was thinking, what does that look like? What kind of traffic are we working with? What keywords are there? So the analysis part, I'd say happened right away. And then we had to take some time, I'd say about, well, in our case, I'd say it was about 3 weeks, but I would recommend a month minimum to dive into that data and really prioritize what is important to you and what's important to your users. One example, and just to be extremely transparent with you guys, is we decided to not keep all of our TLD pages, which people, internally weren't very happy about, because back in the day, if you had a page for each keyword in each TLD, it helped boost your SEO because you're building out those keyword portfolios. But when we looked at the data during that 3-week period, we realized that it wasn't driving traffic. It actually wasn't valuable, and it wouldn't be a good use of our time to work on that. So I'd say a month to research, as much time, depending on how many pages you have, to make sure that what you're producing is better than what you had before. So for some people, that's a year. For us, it was a month. But it really is a case-by-case plan. And I would highly recommend not hitting go until you feel so good about that site that you just, you can't sleep at night. You're like, I gotta get it out to the world.
Gosh, okay. And then there was so specifically too, so did you prop up another hosting.com website, start staging all the content, testing and things like that too?
Yeah, so we were lucky enough to be doing a CMS migration during this time. So whenever we were optimizing our website, we were not actually having to impact the existing site. If you're going to be using the same CMS, I would definitely recommend using WordPress as an example. You can use MAMP to like rock up a local host server, so you don't have to do any sort of changing your actual hosting of your actual website, and you can just use something like up updraft, and you can download it and then download updraft on your staging environment and push that through, and then you can just have a duplicate of your site and start making all the changes that you want. So that's a good WordPress use case for that.
Excellent. And by the way, rocket.net is one of our companies and brands. Excellent WordPress hosting company. We have managed WordPress hosting at hosting.com. By the way, the dashboard is Rocket. So staging sites are good things, by the way.
Totally.
And
If you
and
I would highly recommend working with our rocket.net managed WordPress plans if you are planning on doing anything like this. It also having somebody manage the security side and plugins while you're working away in your staging environment is so useful.
absolutely. Okay, thank you for that, Daphne. All right. So, Jacob asked, and somebody else asked in a previous question, but could you name off some of the tools that you use?
Yeah, for sure. So my personal favorite, which I will talk about every day that I am alive, is Ahrefs. Ahrefs is an all-in-one marketing tool. So this is great for keyword research, for site crawls, understanding the crawlability of your site, competitor analysis, but they also now have like AI overviews. They allow you to feed in your Google Search Console data, your Google Analytics data. They have a marketing platform where you can like manage your social media posts. So if you're going to do any investing in your platforms, Ahrefs is undeniably the best in the market. If you are trying to keep your wallet tight, which I don't judge at all, Google Search Console, Google Analytics, Google Keyword Planner, and Screaming Frog, those are free things that can give you everything you need. And to be honest, the Google Analytics and Google Search data is real data from your website, so you should be utilizing that nonetheless.
Make sure those are all connected back with your analytics and be watching. Okay, thank you. If you have questions for Daphne, please post those in the Q&A. We have about 6 more minutes on the webinar, already packed with good stuff. You're going to get the slides. You're going to get the replay shortly after this. I'll put some more links there so you can sign up for future agency success webinars with experts like Daphne coming on. Okay, Scott said, would you expand on the TLD thing? Are you talking about domains? Okay.
So, yeah, I understand that that might have been confusing if you weren't internally present for those conversations. So A2 hosting had A2 hosting slash domains, which was, you know, targeting the primary keywords that were by a domain name or just domains perhaps. And then every TLD, and I'm talking thousands, had their own landing page. But these pages, all they had were individual H1s and like predefined meta titles and meta descriptions that were just the same template with that different keyword populated in it.
Gotcha.
This used to be a really great strategy about 10 years ago. But the way that they were performing was that they weren't receiving traffic, they weren't getting engagement, they weren't converting. So we had all of this dead weight on our site, arguably dead weight, and we could have different ways to utilize those keywords. Like maybe in our domains page, we could have a list of all of the ones that we offer, or if they had significant search volume in different markets, or you know, we had an exceptional user experience that meant when somebody used the search bar, it actually gave the user the TLD that was in the primary keyword. That would have given us reason to keep it, but we didn't have any of that, and it didn't make sense to migrate that underperforming content to this new website, when instead we could migrate all of the good stuff and then decide to roll out TLD pages as we had the right content and right authority to bring those keywords to our market. So I'm not saying that I'm not that those keywords are unvaluable or that they weren't the right thing. Absolutely, they're great. But we wanted to have exceptional content and we wanted to have the right user experience. So we decided to delay having those pages until we could provide that.
I think you talked about some of this, but there's a decision-making matrix inside of your head there. Well, for me, it was like, well, every page, even if it gets something, might be worth something, but we can't do everything on these migrations and things, especially at the size of what,
You
81.
really can't. Yeah, you have to make those decisions. And I think that data spreadsheet that I shared with you guys, where you just pull in those different metrics and you just color grade it. For me, I'm a very visual person. So when I'm scrolling through and I'm like red, 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 I'm like, okay, so I know that to me, I'm like, okay, whew, don't need to worry about those. But the greens, I do. That may look different to everybody. And in the world of 2025 and beyond, maybe you also want to just like spit that spreadsheet into ChatGPT and say, hey, what do you think? How would you prioritize this? Because we do have these very, very smart computers right at our fingertips, so we can give our brains a break if we need to.
Well, I love the example you gave, is that you knew there was some value, but it might not warrant the level of effort to recreate. So you
Totally.
over to another page that would boost that page.
Yeah. So in that example specifically with the TLDs, we knew that we could migrate, sorry, not migrate, but 301 redirect to the domains page, which was the parent page. So the structure would have been domain/.com or domain/.net. But instead of bringing those over, we just pushed it all to domain. So instead, we actually strengthened the authority of the domains page, which could have helped us reclaim these keywords.
Thanks for that. Vern asks, how many pages now on the hosting.com side? Do you have a guess, or do you know? Probably.
I think it's about 400 pages now, and that's not including the blog and not including the KB. I'm not like personally tied to and attached to all of the pages. We did keep a lot of them for SEO purposes. So if you look at just what's existing on our primary navigation and where we receive 90% of our traffic, I'd say that's more about 45 pages. But there were some things that we just were ranking really, really well for that I was like, well, if it ain't wrong or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that's how the saying goes.
Absolutely. Yeah, Vern says huge, 400 pages. Yeah, this was an undertaking, and I got to watch the behind the scenes and progress of this. Daphne, here's a question, maybe our final question. And FYI, everybody listening today, Daphne's had several webinars in the past where she's talking about SEO for LLMs, like the work that Daphne and her team are doing on SEO, where it's not locked into what was yesterday, it's on the edge of where things are going. You can see all those replays on our hosting.com YouTube channel. And we're going to be having Daphne come on more because you can see why. She knows what she's doing. Daphne, so with the last minute, we're already past time. We need to let you go back to work and do your things. What are you thinking about today? What are you working on? What are you curious about? What are you testing in this broad thing called SEO?
So exciting. I love this question. Gosh, I think the most important thing for us right now is really understanding the nuances to user behavior, and like how we can correlate our CRO data with our SEO data. A good example of that is I always want like such in-depth FAQs and like long nurturing content, because that's how you prove your value and prove your worth. But that's not necessarily how we need product pages to look. And that's not exactly how people are going to walk away with the information that they need. So right now we are just testing everything. You may have seen on hosting.com that yesterday we released a new navigation. On that navigation, we include icons and descriptions, different calls to actions. We're testing all of that all of the time. We have an incredible CRO manager in-house, Halima, who comes up with all of her own theories. She single-handedly puts all of these tests in action. I adore her. And yeah, she's keeping that ball rolling, and we are working together very closely to take that data and see how that a CRO impacts our SEO with rankings and what changes drive conversions, because all of that, which is, again, I say this on every webinar, all of that together is what makes SEO so exciting to me. It's not just content, it's not just tech, it's not just user experience, it's not just LLMs, it's all of it together. And yeah, love it, love it, love it.
We're going to have to come back on that. I'm going to have to ask you offline about that, and we'll come back because CRO, could you explain that for me and anyone else that might have missed that?
Yeah, of course. So CRO stands for conversion rate optimization. So this is looking at the way that users are funneling through our site, reading and engaging our content, where they click, where they bounce away from, and then using that data to strategize what our content or user experience looks like moving forward. So it's an extremely important department for anybody who's trying to make sales, and a tool that we could walk away with right now and implement on site that we use in-house as well as VWO. And I believe that they have a reasonable free tier that has a lower amount of user data that you can start to like collect heat maps, or I'm not sure exactly where the restrictions lie, and I apologize, but I do recommend checking it out.
I love, if you all were listening to what Daphne, how she answered is data informed decisions. So she's looking at data. This is what I'm drawing from that, and seeing, okay, we might hear a best practice be on another live stream or whatever, but we're looking and anchored in our own data. That's why you talked about Ahrefs and Google Search Console and analytics and everything, and testing things and seeing how they change. But it starts with data, and then you're using some decision making about how we present those things on the page.
Absolutely.
So for back to you and your clients, data led decisions with humans in mind, right? So you might hear some thoughts, a new thing, you should be doing this. Look at your data, see how it is, make your decisions so you know what's best for you and your clients.
Absolutely. And that's just, so I'm just going to piggyback on that really quickly. Your users are your users, and understanding them and not just going into the latest hype, because that's what everybody on LinkedIn is saying to do, is so important. Don't forget who your people are and what they expect from you. I think that's extremely important.
Absolutely. Well, hey, everybody, say thanks to Daphne. I'm going to put a link in here to her LinkedIn. She's awesome. Connect with her over there. She's an amazing leader within our company at hosting.com, and we'll be back. So be sure and say, come back, come back. Tell us what you want to talk about, what you want her to talk about. We continue to talk internally, and I go, can we do this as a webinar? And she's like, heck yes. So she's here for you. You're getting a bunch of thank yous in the chat. But thank you again, Daphne in Spain. Now go enjoy your night with your family there, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Corey.
For everybody else, thanks again for coming to another hosting.com agency success community live stream. I put a link in there, by the way. We got a great offer going on that you can test out our managed WordPress hosting, which, by the way, rocks, because we've got rocket.net now a part of our team. It's even better than it was. So anyway, thanks for joining, everyone. We'll see you back next time.
See you later.